Gusayo. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here on this very hot day in New York City as we stand together in community and solidarity to reflect upon the enduring legacies of the Battle of Okinawa. My name is Daniella Occhineri. I am here today as a fourth generation Uchinanchu, born and raised in the United States and a recent graduate of New York University. Last semester, alongside Mariko Middleton from the Ichariba Chode podcast, we launched an archiving project with the Okinawan American Association of New York City in collaboration with the Asian Pacific American Institute at NYU. As part of the archiving project's mission to document and preserve the history of Okinawan Americans in New York City, we set out to connect with elders in our community, sit down and interview them, to connect younger generations with those before us so we may hear their stories and ensure that their voices get preserved in the historic record. And in that process, many shared with us their harrowing experiences having survived the Battle of Okinawa. The project is still ongoing, but I wanted to take the time that I have here to share some of their accounts, as well as some reflections that I have made as an Okinawan American about our responsibility to not only remember, but to bear witness to the stories of our elders, but to embody their hopes for peace, to embody the phrase Nusido Takara, meaning life is treasure. One of the first people I spoke to was Teiko-san, an overseas reporter for the Okinawa Times, an international advocate for peace, grandmother to a mixed Uchinanchu family, and one of the strongest women I have ever met. She shares some of her earliest memories from the Battle of Okinawa. At just 4 years old, her father was conscripted and left their family in Nago to join the fighting in the south. She says she remembers the B-29 bombers and the destruction of entire villages which followed their presence in the skies overhead. She recalls a time after the battle when groups of civilians scoured fields of Itoman, looking for salvageable remains of their relatives so that their bones could be collected, washed, and properly buried. While searching for bones in the tall grass, Teiko-san recalls being attacked by giant red ants of disproportionate size, their bodies fertilized by the death and decay. Later this past April, I had the chance to talk to another survivor, Setsuko-san, a skilled seamstress and wife to the first president of the Okinawa American Association of New York. In our interview, she describes being around 7 years old when the Battle of Okinawa began. Setsuko describes seeing the American tanks and the flattening of villages. Due to escalating violence between American and Japanese forces in the south, Setsuko-san and other villagers were forced to flee north to the mountains. She stayed in a storage unit at her aunt's house with 50 other people. She recounts having no food to eat, so children and family relied on weeds and grass, whatever they can find, boiling them in hopes of turning the weeds edible. They didn't have pots, pans, or a kitchen to cook in, so they used fire and empty ration cans given to them by American soldiers to make their meals. Teiko-san and Setsuko-san are just two of the thousands who experienced the consequences of the Battle of Okinawa. I recall these harrowing instances described to me by my elders, not to shock you by the brutality of which they endured, but because they, like many of our elders, share their stories with intent, with a mission of making sure our generation understands the realities of war, so that our generation will never have to live through the trauma that they did. That we only have to hear about the horrors of war and not relive it ourselves, so that we may never make the mistake of allowing these senseless crimes and this violence to repeat itself. Thus, as Uchinanchu in the diaspora and as people of conscience, we must consider our responsibility as the next generation. Unfortunately, in our time, war and genocide has been normalized by our government, by our media, and by our institutions. And the United States continues to wage wars globally, as well as aid and abet genocide and the starvation of civilians. When I hear of our Uchinanchu elders recalling searching for their loved ones amongst a battlefield of bones and remains, I see the people of Gaza desperately searching for their martyred brothers and sisters in the rubble. When I hear our Uchinanchu elders recall their starvation, resorting to eating weeds, I see the people of Gaza today subjected to forced starvation and famine. Unfortunately, as we stand here in New York City, the United States once again finds itself needlessly at war, just this weekend dropping bombs on Iran, putting us at risk of another world war. a war which would threaten to bring death and destruction to all people of the world, including the people of Okinawa, as one of the most important US-based colonies in the Pacific. Thus, we must reconsider what it means to remember the Battle of Okinawa. Why it is so important that we recognize this day, Ire no Hi. I firmly believe that it is our responsibility to not simply remember and move on, but to embody the desperate calls for peace that echo through the stories of our elders. To take advantage of our privilege from within the belly of the beast to demand an end to all wars everywhere. As those who bear witness to our elders' stories, as inheritors of their legacies, as human beings, we must understand and embody Nichido Takara and take a stand against all wars everywhere. To carry this phrase with us and spread its embrace as we enter this new phase of war waged by the fascist regime. Because we understand that this day is not just about remembering, but taking action. It is so that we do not see our generation or generations after bear witness to the same war crimes that befell the people of Okinawa 80 years ago. From Okinawa to Palestine, occupation is a crime. Ni fe debiru. Thank you.